Hi, everyone. I'm Kellyn. I'm a product designer at Substack. I'm going to talk about a lot of things, and I'm probably going to talk a little bit faster than Casey. So don't freak out. We will share the information with you afterwards, and also feel free to screenshot anything that you want to. So I'm going to be talking about a few concepts that can be used to design a great reading experience for your subscriber. So I'm going to go over some design principles and then focus on two surface areas that you can apply the principles to. And that's your actual post format and then the newsletter or the homepage layout. And these principles can be applicable to other surfaces as well. So in user interfaces, when we apply principles of grouping, we can make the comprehension of elements quicker and easier. So grouping principles can also help us establish what actions we want readers to prioritize. So the principle of proximity is, of similarity is grounded on the idea that elements that have the same visual characteristics will be seen as belonging together. And that similarity is often based on visual parameters like color and shape and size and orientation. So if you can imagine, if we give elements on our posts or homepage identical or similar visual features, we can stimulate readers to make connections and understand the whole scheme faster. So similarity also enables contrast, which is important if we want to make something stand out. An example on the bottom right is one of size contrast. So you can imagine how we might create contrast with orientation or color, like a text link. The principle of proximity is based on a cognitive tendency to perceive objects that are close together as related. So we have the urge to organize data and objects around us, and people do this like really automatically, actually. So proximity is often more powerful than other distinctive features like color or shape. So even if the elements have different features, like on the bottom right, most of us will probably see these as left group and right group because they're proximity to each other. So this is a good prompt in how to organize our layout so we can try and align with the natural ways that our brain absorbs and classifies information. So let's think about how to apply those principles to creating visual hierarchy in our posts. If we're trying to design a good user experience, it's important that we start by trying to gain empathy for our users. So in this case, we're talking about your current or potential subscribers. So what might your readers need when they land on or open a post? They probably want to know what it's about right away. They want it to be easily readable. They want to know what actions they can and should take. And maybe most importantly, they'll want to be able to quickly find their place if they're on their phone, multitasking, as many of us do. We know that a large chunk of our views do come from the mobile device. So I'm going to be sort of reminding of us of that throughout this presentation, that just as something to take into consideration while you are laying out your post. So this is why formatting is really important. It's a tool that allows us to create visual hierarchy. It helps readers organize elements. And these are all tools that we have in Substack in the publication area. So it is important because these are important because they increase readability and legibility. They help readers navigate, and they can help guide readers to important actions. So let's look at a few examples of formatting and how it can help us group information to create an optimal reading experience. Let us not underestimate the humble paragraph, people. One of the most basic and fundamental ways we group information in proximity and similarity is the paragraph. So for publications like Persuasion that are journalistic in nature, it doesn't always make sense to have a page filled with images or video or highly stylized graphics that might distract from the nature of the topic. We still want to consider paragraph length as a way to create distinct sections that we can navigate through easily. So it's a way to create white space and to give our eyes small breaks from reading, and also consider the mobile reader who might be multitasking. Paragraphs help us find the group of content we were reading or want to get back to. Walk It Off is a great example of a longer format writing that has a cadence of images and text. So we will go about 2 to 4 paragraphs and then have an image. So it gives the reader enough time to get into a flow before we get a visual aid, but also not distract from the story, but hopefully enhance it. Another example that I love is Perfectly Imperfect, and they get creative with pull quotes. So they use them to contain related information. They also do this really cute thing with emojis for kind of a visual anchor at each section that makes it really easy to jump around and sort of know where you are in a longer post. Another way to create navigation for long content is to create a table of contents for readers so they can easily wayfind. I saw this in Animation Obsessive, and I love how the numbered sections gave me like a natural sense of progression. So I know where I am, and I can also jump to a certain section if I know I really want to read that. In contrast, some posts don't really have as much, if any, text at all. Jeff Tweedy has been making audio posts or small written updates, so we can still create visual hierarchy through ordering. The most important thing is at the top, so it doesn't get lost below the image. But now these two elements can work together as a group as the image provides context to the audio. We can also use images to group content like they do in Draw Together. Each image helps chunk related content together. And the cool thing about this is that this helps reinforce the publication style and tone. You can do this with the horizontal rule element in the publication tools, but you can also do this with images. Another great example is Casey's work, where on Recommended, where we use an image as a header section to organize related content, and repeat these sections each post so that there's consistency and similarity in the post format, which is great for setting expectations for the reader, which can make a much nicer reading experience if they know what they're going to experience each time they open your post. Mixtape is a publication that uses images as an interactive element. So it gets readers to go check out their playlist on Spotify instead of using the default Spotify embed. It gives it some extra style and really sets it apart visually from other publications. Which brings me to interaction, which is a really important topic for us. And I want to talk about our beloved buttons. One of the few interactions that are available, but a really important one. Buttons let users take action and make choices, and they're really important if we want our readers to take specific actions like signing up for our publications. So give readers one action per section. Buttons intentionally stand out on the page as the most important thing to do. So we're asking a reader to, or if we group many buttons together, our ask becomes a lot less clear. Am I to subscribe, share, or leave a comment? What do you want me to do? We also have the advantage of the fact that you have people reading already, so tell them why subscribing or commenting is important in the surrounding text. If you want to get your readers to complete multiple actions within a single section, which is likely, you can use text links as a secondary action. So the way that a reader knows what action is most important to take, or that way they know which one is most important to take. And then they also have additional options. And text links are great because they can make your publication interactive and easy to navigate without distracting from your amazing content. So DIRT is a good example of using text links as the top header element that takes you to the publication page. So remember, many people will be opening this on email. So a link to the post view outside of the email client can create a great experience. And we also have a link to the author's personal page, and the links are functional and but also create a visual hierarchy on the page. And we see our little pull quote being used again to create that container for this section. On the first 1,000, the very first thing we're asked to do here is to subscribe. So some people might need a little more context before taking this action, but they're really going for it here, which is fine. And the link just below that secondary link is goes out to the publication. So another area that we can ask people to take actions is in our email footers and headers. And in this example, they're creating a sort of compelling story for us about why you might want to subscribe. It's a little like, it's a slightly trolly or spammy, don't miss out on this, but I think it's sort of aligned with their style, and it's kind of cheeky, so it works for them. Text links can also be used like a button without the container. So you can use text and arrows and icons and to make that call to action stand out from your content, but not distract from it. So this is a way to sort of keep many actions in there, but not have your page just a page full of buttons, because your content is the most important thing, really. So that was a lot. That was about the post layout. I'm going to kind of keep rolling into the home page and then give us some summarizing thoughts at the end here. But rolling into our home page, this is a card of invitation. It's a starting point of the journey around your work. It's a storage of really important links and strategic assets for your personal marketing. This is going to be the first impression a reader gets of your work sometimes, and you want to make sure you're presenting yourself and your work in a clear, consistent, meaningful way. We're going to want to check in with what our readers might need from us on this page. They'll want to know, what's it about? What kind of content are you offering? They'll potentially want to find something that they've read before, or they're looking for something new. They want to discover something that they're excited to see what you're doing. So the main function of this page is to help people navigate through your work so they can learn about you and your publication. There are some things that can help facilitate that. Naming conventions can be descriptive as well as create similarity and consistency. Post images can help us group like content, and we can create ways to guide our readers to the most important information. So the goal of implementing naming convention is to make the element role in the system obvious just from the name. So Willie Woo helps us understand this through naming conventions, that he is writing a chronological series of forecasts, each with a different sentiment or take on the forecast. And from his naming conventions and post images, you get a sense of his style, right? He seems like he's probably a pretty straight shooter, but has a sense of humor. Above the fold, which we're going to get into deeper in a little bit, does a great job of seeing groups or creating groups by using labels over images. So we get the similarity in color and content on the label, but that contrast from the images for visual dynamics and distinction of elements in the list. I think it's important to call out too that you might not have naming conventions or different post types, and that's totally great too. It's still definitely helpful to have imagery on your publication page because it helps readers distinguish between posts and give a sense of your style and sort of gives a visual teaser to the content. Persuasion is a good example of a publication that only uses an image for the pin post. So this creates a really focused and dramatic feel to the page. We know what the writer thinks is most important. The contrast of the purely typographic list next to the larger font and the imagery creates that visual hierarchy that we want. And they also do a smart thing, which is to use the sidebar to call out important information. What do they cover, their events, and their mission statement. So that's a great way to add a little more navigation to your page. So I'd be remiss if I didn't touch quickly on theming. There are a few visual choices you can make about the look of your publication. So I'm just going to go over some basics. You can choose the background color and accent color of the interactive elements on your publication. So a couple things to keep in mind when you're choosing your palette are the contrast between your background color and your text can really increase readability and legibility. So if the contrast is low, visibility is going to be low and objects sort of tend to disappear or they can vibrate if they're complementary, which creates what we call, vibration. It is kind of like a dizzying effect. So for interactive elements like your buttons and your links, we really want them to be highly visible with high contrast so that they both stand out but are still easy to read. There's a bunch of sort of like resources online about choosing color palettes, and we can link to those as well that sort of generate good palettes if you're looking for that. More on the style side of things, you can choose fonts for your publication. These should all work for reading, but it's more of like a personality and stylistic choice that you can make. So for example, serif font is more typical for newspapers and books and lengthy text. And sans serif fonts are a little bit more modern and broadly used for any topic. And we'll share these also at the end of class, but there's a couple more that are even more stylized that you could choose from. So just some final thoughts. I know that was a lot and that was really fast, so we'll make sure to get the main points sent out to you guys. But for you to kind of take away and think about for yourself is how might I use proximity and similarity and contrast to create more visual hierarchy on my publication? And what formatting tools could I use to play around with my post layouts? How can I guide readers to take specific actions? And is my theme working for me? How can I increase readability or use visuals to complement my writing style? So that's it for me.